Will moving to Cape Cod cost you thousands of dollars? Stay tuned and find out. As always, don't forget to reach out to me, John DeLellis, yourcapecod.com, 508-241-4100. I am always here to answer your questions in regards to any of the projects going on Cape Cod right now. Okay, settle down. It's not what you think. So I am here to talk about the Barnstable County Sewer Project. That's one of the most frequent questions that I get as a real estate agent is, am I going to have to connect to a sewer? Am I going to have to pay thousands of dollars when I buy my house? What is this project all about? Especially people who don't live in the area and have never heard of it. So, what the Barnstable County Sewer Project is in a nutshell. Basically, why are they doing it? 99% of Cape Cod is on septic systems or Title V. Most of us used to have cesspools until they enacted Title V, which is a little bit more cleaner version to process wastewater. But basically what has happened is the sandy soil here on Cape Cod does not bode well with the nitrogen levels coming out of the wastewater. So the town has come up with these, or the towns have come up with these comprehensive wastewater plans, essentially designed to fix that nitrogen loading into the soil. And essentially what they're doing is they are doing a town public sewer project in almost every town. So what does it kind of mean for you as a buyer? Let's start from the beginning. So normally, if you are going to transact a home here on Cape Cod, you have a septic system, a Title V or a cesspool. Cesspools are kind of frowned upon nowadays. They can be transacted. I won't get into all the logistics on that, but they need to pass. Again, so we have Title V. So Title V systems started being done closer to the late 70s and then the 80s. Basically, if your home was built after 1978, most likely it has a Title V system with a waste pit and a leaching field. That means that your solids go into one tank, the water level is supposed to rise, it's supposed to leach out and then leach into the groundwater, thus the word leach. So when you transact real estate, you have to get that inspected unless you sell the house as is and yada, yada, yada. We're not going to get into all those details, but usually you have to get it inspected. The seller does. So the seller will get that Title V inspected. A licensed inspector will come out and say, yes, it passes. No, it doesn't pass. It conditionally passes. It may need a distribution box, something to that effect. But it needs to pass, especially if you're getting a loan. Most lenders won't lend you the money unless the Title V is passing. So, hopping into the sewer project, what does that mean if you have a Title V septic system and you are in the sewer project? Well, what it actually means is that you will, regardless of your Title V, depending on what phase you are in of the project, will have to connect to the public sewer. I am in phase 1. My road was the very first road in Barnstable that they did, and I needed to connect to the public sewer. So normally with a Title V, if it fails, you have 2 years to fix it. That's if you are a homeowner, you get backup or something in your basement, and they come out and find that the Title V has failed. Typically, the town that you're in will give you 2 years in order to fix that. If it's in complete failure, there's a whole different ballgame. A lot of the times they only give you 60 days to fix it. You may have to go to the town and see what the case is, but most of the time, you have, if it's a minor failure like a distribution box or something to that effect, they will allow you 2 years to fix the issue. But if you are in a sewer project area, it kind of doesn't matter. Once the sewer is available in your area, you have 6 months to hook up. For instance, I am in phase 1 of the project. Once the sewer was done on my street, I was given a notice in the mail. I had to hook up. And doesn't mean you have to hook up as long as you're in the process of getting it done. You have a contractor and whatnot, and the scope is underway. But my town said that if you do not comply, you will have to pay $200 a day after the 6-month period. So you don't want to do that. Now, it also depends. So let's say you are in phase 1 of the project and your septic fails. Phase 1 is between year 1 and year 10. So 10 years out, you can get an exemption from the town, and they may make you pump it every 6 months, once a year at least, maybe once a month. It depends on the type of failure. But they will, but you can get an exemptions to, not put in a new septic and just say, okay, I'll pump it every 6 months or, whatever it takes to keep this going for the next 1 to 10 years. Check with your local town. That is all dependent on your town. The towns have the typical end of story saying. So if you are looking to buy a home on Cape Cod, let's say you're not from the area, you're looking to move to Cape Cod, there's a lot of due diligence that your realtor, call me, I'm happy to help, that they should be doing for you. Number one is finding out if the home is even in the sewer project in one of the phases. If not, it'll have to go by the typical Title V inspection report. If it is, find out what phase that they're in, because if it is phase 1, just remember, you will be subject to paying those fees to install it into your home, connecting it in the next 1 to 10 years. If the septic on that home has failed, remember, if you may be subject to different types, sorry, video screwed up. You could be subject to different types of costs involved with the project. So if you are selling, now buyers are going to ask you if your home is in the sewer project plan. If I was on the other side, I would. Maybe if you're a bad realtor, you won't. But make sure you have that answer ready. Make sure you know what phase it's in, contact your town, or have your realtor contact the town to find out what phase that is in. So you could be in 1, 2, and 3. So again, phase 3 is not for 30 years. So, that's something that is pretty far out for most people. If you're in phase 1, just remember that you are subject to those connections within year 1 to 10. Get your Title V inspected. So the best thing you can do is go right ahead, get it inspected, call a licensed inspector. Me personally, I don't like to use Title V inspectors that also do the work. Don't know why, they may have a cause to fail you. I like to use Title V inspectors that don't do the work. They are just inspectors. And then with your buyers, be upfront about the cost. Tell people, it might even be worth your while to get a quote from a contractor saying, hey, look, this is what it is going to possibly cost to connect to the public sewer when it does come in. So make sure that, you have those costs up front, and, and there's no ifs, ands, buts about it, that when someone's coming to buy your house, that they don't know these costs up front. If the Title V has failed, you may be subject to different types of, regulations per town, pumping or whatnot, until that sewer project does come down your road and you connect. Ask your realtor about the Title V. Make sure that that the system passed, and that it is, and what phase it might be in, who's on the hook for connections and repairs. That's something that, you may want to check out. A lot of sellers who are in this phase 1 are crediting a total or a sum towards the connection. And just remember, plan for extra costs. So if you are going to be connecting to the sewer, plan for that cost. So for me, I was in phase 1. It cost me $9,300 for the connection. It cost me $1,900 for a betterment to the town, road paving, et cetera, et cetera. And then you got to remember, so usually it's about $300 to $400 every 2 years to pump your septic. Now it's annually, it is, roughly $400 to $500 on your tax assessment to use the sewer. So remember that. In the end, you don't have a septic in your yard. You don't have, you're technically not regulated to the bedroom number per septic. However, there are different regulations per town that deal with that. So make sure you ask your realtor. Me, be happy to help. So what does this actually cost? So if you look at the Barnstable County Sewer Assessment website, the average cost for a hookup for that you personally have to pay is between $5,000 and $15,000. Now, I went through the Barnstable County AquiFund loan system for a low interest rate loan. So that's something that you can look into. The assessment, the betterment assessments, they cap at $10,000. In some instances, you might need a grinder pump, like if your septic's not in the right area or it's too far away. Some towns pay for the pump, some towns don't. So again, that needs to be something that you need to research. And again, the annual assessment fee to use the sewer is typically $400 to $500. Again, so the Cape Cod AquiFund, is a loan program that, I have a blog on my website that I'll link to below. But for easiest way to say it is that they give you a loan based on your income on what that on an interest rate. So let's say it costs $10,000 and you make $10,000 a year, you will get a 0% interest rate. You make a particular amount higher than that, you might get a 2% interest rate. You make more than that, you might get a 4% interest rate. So there are different levels, and it depends on whether you're a seasonal resident, whether your home's already on the market, how much money you make. So, again, it's one of those things to contact the Barnstable County AquiFund in order to learn that. I did it. It was actually a very easy process, way easier than I thought. One thing you want to do is make sure that you have the previous year's tax returns ready to go, so that when you enter your application, they're going to ask for those tax returns. They give you a percentage based on the amount that you make. A few things to keep in mind in regards to this, the systems here. Roads often get a no-dig moratorium. They often need to be repaved, or once they're repaved, they won't allow you to do any type of work on that road. So the timing is, plan that timing out. Make sure that you have that planned and you are ready to connect when that is coming up your road. Grinder pumps. If you need a grinder pump, it needs electricity. You might need an electrician to come out and put a power source out there, and they do need an alarm box if they fail, so that it'll beep and let you know that, hey, something screwed up. If you add bedrooms or ADUs, remember, that could also trigger extra fees in the town, depending on which town you're in. And, you're responsible for your driveway, your flower beds, any landscaping features that you may have. They are going to find the easiest route possible to run from where the waste line comes out of your house all the way to the septic tie or the sewer tie in your front yard, typically. And whatever's the easiest way, could be through flower beds, could be under your driveway. Me, luckily, I was all lawn, but my neighbor had to tear up their driveway and completely repave it. So that's an extra cost that you will have to anticipate, just to keep that in mind. Okay, and kind of to wrap it up here, the biggest things that are the take-homes are, remember, you as a buyer or a seller must be prepared to talk about this or be prepared for some cost involved. In the end, it will make your values increase, because you do not have a septic. You're not subject to septic inspections or any of that type of thing. However, just remember that you are going to be subject to some sort of payment, whether it's now or 30 years down the line, whether you're in phase 3. And there are a lot of homes on Cape Cod that aren't in any phase. So, and those are typically the ones that are 40 years out. So, I'll be dead by then. Remember that there are programs out there, the AquiFund loan, to do this betterment. They will pay for it. They won't pay for the betterment, but they will pay for the attachment to your home. So I had the $9,300 that it cost me to attach, paid by the AquiFund. They gave me a low interest loan. I'll end up pay it off over, I forget, 20 something years. My payment ended up starting at about $90 a month, and then it works its way down all the way in 20 years. I'll be paying like $20 a month. There's no prepayment penalty. You can pay it off all now or later or whenever you want. You hit the lottery in 5 years, you can pay it off. And again, this all comes down to planning and working with a knowledgeable, good realtor when you're buying or selling a home. I know I've heard horror stories from people that have said, oh my God, like the realtor didn't tell my friends or me that when I was buying a house that I'd be subject to these fees hooking up to the sewer system, that my road was going to be torn up for a year in front of my house, all these yada, yada, yadas. And they were pissed. Like some of these people tried to hold their realtors liable, and obviously, it's something that maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. However, you have to remember, if you have a good, knowledgeable realtor, they will keep you informed of the process. They will do the research for you. They would tell you what phase you're in and when you're subject to. They can't tell you how much it's going to cost per se, that's to connect, because each home is individual. However, they're going to tell you that, okay, you're in phase 1. That means you're between year 1 and 10. And, I've contacted the town, and the town is expecting that your street will go on in most likely 3 to 5 years, yada, yada, yada. That type of thing. So make sure that, you are prepared for that. And in the end, just be prepared. That's all that really matters. Deal with a good realtor. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, 508-241-4100. I'd be happy to help.